What's up guys, my name is Jarod Coffman. I'm a framer in Colorado, working mostly in the South area, at least trying to. And today I wanted to talk about production framing and really kind of what the concept of that means and how that has affected the trade, and is it a good thing, is it a bad thing, all that stuff, and really just kind of go over some of my thoughts on it. And because I don't like sitting still, we're also gonna put a new handle on this 14-ounce Stiletto hammer. So let's get into it. So production framing for a really long time, I feel like tends to have somewhat of a negative connotation around it. I think that's largely due to tract framing, and really just the fact that the goal and the purpose of tract framing is basically to mass produce houses. And nowadays, mass produce kind of means like a negative thing. But really, when that first came around, it was actually a really positive thing. There was, after one of the wars, I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm not good at history, but there was basically a lot of veterans and people needing houses, and the solution was to build them quick and cheap. So people were doing that. That's kind of when Larry Hahn got into production framing, and if you don't know Larry Hahn, definitely look him up. You'll learn a lot more from him than you will from me. But he, one of the earlier framers to adopt production framing techniques. And kind of a fun story that I actually tell people a lot. When he was production framing with his brothers in his prime, I want to say he had two brothers that he framed with. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But on average, carpenters working in the same area were getting paid $3 a day, and they'd frame up the house and however long, and they would basically spend, I don't know exactly how much money, but it ended up being more than $90 that they would pay over the course of however long it took to pay multiple carpenters. So let's say if there was 3 carpenters, it took them more than 10 days because it cost more than 90 days. So, but anyways, Larry and his brothers, they would frame their houses and they'd do it in 3 days because they were so efficient, but they would charge a flat rate of $90. So they were getting it done quicker, so they were doing it for cheaper than the builders were hiring other framers to do. But Larry and his brothers were making more money because they were so efficient. So even though they were getting paid less per house, they were making more per carpenter because of how efficient they were. So instead of getting paid $3 a day and taking 10 days, they were getting paid $30 each and taking 3 days. So they were making $10 a day instead of $3 a day. So anyways, that in my mind, I feel like is basically the concept behind what makes production framing. The idea is that you can be so good at it and so efficient at it that it actually becomes cheaper. And to me, that is the philosophy behind production framing that actually holds a lot of value. Another excellent person that can speak into this and will teach you a lot and has taught me a lot would be Scott Wadsworth, also known as Essential Craftsman. He was a production framer in Vegas, I believe, and it's just, that's what it was. They needed them fast and they needed them cheap, so the way to do that was with efficiency. And nowadays, the connotation behind it is that it's cheap, but that's not always a bad thing. Now, a simple way for me to explain my philosophy behind production framing is this. Gang cutting is a great example. Gang cutting basically means cutting multiple pieces of wood with one motion or with one tool at a time. So my ideal is that if you're cutting everything at the same time, then everything is the exact same. And that is a simple way of explaining the value of production framing. You're simplifying things and doing more things at a time. The risk that comes alongside that is that when you're cutting everything at one time, you better be sure that your mark is right. Because if you miscut something, on this end you mark the studs right, but on this end you inch it, now all of your studs are wrong. So that is where production framing really takes a lot more planning and working ahead rather than just taking things slow and building it all piece by piece. Two other great examples of production framers would be Adrian / Framing Beast on YouTube. Definitely, again, recommend looking him up. One of my favorite things about watching him work is usually when he turns on his camera, it's when everything is cut and it's just time to start nailing and going to town. But what I love is the implication that he prepped everything ahead of time. So often what I see guys on our crew or just in general is guys will start building a wall and they'll be, oh, okay, I need this piece. I'm going to go cut it, or I'm going to tell someone else to cut it, whatever. And they actually end up stopping and waiting on something. But when everything is prepped ahead of time, you get into this production mode where you see these guys just like running crazy fast. Like nails are just flying out of the gun. They're insanely quick, throwing up a wall in like just a couple minutes. And really, like, it seems like it's so fast, but part of the reason it's so fast is all they're doing is nailing. Everything is laid out. Everything is in place. Everything is cut. All they need to do is literally just fasten it together with nails. So that is another part of production framing. I mean, you almost think of it like an assembly line. That was a big thing that Larry Hahn talked about was, and Tim Uhler, Awesome Framer, says this as well, where he talks about economy of movement, which is basically like making every movement count and using it as efficiently as possible. Another additional production framer with a lot of really great techniques that I learned a lot from and I recommend you check out too, because I'm sure you can learn from them as well, was Crazy Framer. And he hasn't uploaded in quite a few years, I think, but he really was just, I mean, remarkable. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not going to teach you the safest way to do really anything, but what I love about him and what I learned a lot from him was the concept of you can make it happen. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of guys that'll show up to work and be like, oh, no, the guys aren't here, so I'm by myself, so I can't work, I can't build a house. If you watch this guy's videos, he has like seasons/series videos, you will never say that because this guy just makes it happen. Don't get me wrong, he's building small Canadian tract homes, but what he does is no small feat. He's really just a remarkable person, and you can learn a lot about the concept of just getting it done, honestly. There's no better way to describe it than just getting it done. And that is yet another mindset in tract framing and production framing that is looked down on, is the get or done mindset, you know? A lot of people with an outside perspective will kind of look at the risk or the quickness of production framing and production framers in general. But the reality is, like, a lot of the guys that started the crap talking about production framers was actually custom framers. Framers that, well, the tract framers or production framers were their competition. And when production framers started coming into the custom field, because it turned out they actually weren't as hack as everyone thought they were taking their work. So my dad has a lot of history in construction and in framing in both custom and in production/tract homes. And one of my favorite stories is when he first started out, he had one employee who was basically a pot-smoking high schooler, and there was like a 5-man crew across the street of what I would call custom framers, / in this scenario at least. And those custom framers were basically saying, oh, you're just a kid, you don't know what you're doing, you know, I don't know, you're full of it, you're all talk. And he basically said, like, okay, well, let's race. I'll take this house here, it's this model, you take that one, the same model across the street, and we'll race, and we'll see whose house comes out better. So that's exactly what they did. And sure enough, he ended up winning the race. And not only did he win the race, he had substantially less, if any, punch list left after the fact. And the other guys had more to do. So it then goes to show, if he's less experienced and he has less people but he got it done quicker, cleaner, and he knocked out more of the list. What was it? And it really came down to production techniques, because at the end of the day, saving time and increasing consistency is better in all regards. Now, his roof slayer, he's on Instagram and he has some courses on MT Copeland, but what he does is he pre-builds, or rather he pre-cuts and pre-calculates all of his roof systems in a shop, and then he trucks them out to the site and then they build them. And a lot of times, and I think he does this more consistently now, but he'll cut the roof before the walls are framed. So he doesn't have plates to measure and confirm. So everything has to be built per plan. But the advantage to that is everything is built per plan. There's no, oh, let's add an inch here, let's add a half inch here, let's grow it a little here, let's make it work, let's cheat it. If you do take a little bit of time up front to make everything right and spot on the money per the plans, it allows you to think ahead. A great story I thought of, I read it in a forum. I'll try to link it in the description if I can find it. But this guy was telling a story about how he would frame a house and be, having to frame a floor first, like we have to here where we have basements and at the very least a crawl space. He would, in the first day, be ready to start building walls. What he would do is he would have someone spreading green plate around the foundation while him and a guy snapped out the foundation. As soon as they were done snapping, guys started plating the foundation with green plate. Now guys are getting floor joists rolled nearby and ready to set right behind him. And then as soon as they have the floor on and they're starting to deck the floor, he's cutting and laying out plates based off the plans. And they already snapped the floor and framed the floor based off the plans. So with the plates cut, they're ready to just start framing away right after the fact. Now, I remember reading that forum in my late teenage years, 18 to 19 years old, and really just literally being excited by it. Hearing these stories of these guys just working and having good systems that worked well, but it wasn't because they were cutting corners. It was because they were anticipating corners. And that literally just, it got me so excited. And it still does to this day. There's nothing like a good game plan when it comes to having a good day at work. Now, I probably should clarify, I'm not really saying that all production framing things are great, because the unfortunate reality is that there is still a culture of cutting corners and really just hack framing that does take place in a lot of production framing environments. But I think what I'm trying to say is that I think the culture behind production framing should be, and truly is, more sophisticated and a lot more noble than what most people would say it is. All right, well, really, in closing, I think that production framing ultimately is a mindset. I think that every framer should strive to have that mindset. I think that the construction industry is better because of that mindset. And yeah, I don't think it's just something that's a hack. I don't think that it's something that builders should be afraid of. I think it's something that builders should want. because I ultimately believe it's someone that desires efficiency over a paycheck, even if those things go hand in hand. And on that note, it's the hammer all finished up, fresh mill on the face, fresh new handle, grinded nice and smooth on the top. Let's see how it hammers nails.